Hey guys, this is the MMA breakdown, and before I do my predictions for UFC Fight Night 98, Dos Anjos versus Ferguson 2, I'm going to quickly recap my picks for UFC 204, Bisping versus Henderson 2. So I was 6 for 11 for the event, and I will show you my ranking for the event here. Sorry. 5,116 for the event, 6 for 11, and overall that dropped me only one spot to 791, a 790 going into the event. And I will very quickly scroll through my picks. Okay. Hey guys, I'm the MMA Breakdown, and today we're doing predictions for TUF Latin America 3 finale, Dos Anjos versus Ferguson. Follow me on Twitter. My link is in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. Excuse me if throughout the video I'm holding my phone up like this. It's a little bit hard to see. Yeah, I think there are some really good matchups on this card, a great main event, and they've really beefed this thing up in the past couple weeks, adding Lamas versus Oliveira, I think just last week, and then a little bit before that they added Alvey versus Nicholson, moved it over from another card. So I really like those additions, and I think for a TUF finale, at least on paper, it looks like a pretty fun card, so I'm looking forward to it. All right, at featherweight, Enrique Barzola versus Chris Avila. I'm taking Barzola here. I think he should win pretty easily. Avila against Artem Lobov just looked like he completely did not belong in the UFC. Never got his rhythm on the feet. I don't remember him landing much of anything or really having any significant offense in that fight. And Barzola does look like a UFC ready fighter, at least among the lower ranks, and has had two good performances so far in the UFC. In the finale fight to win TUF Latin America 2, a very dominant wrestling performance against Gutierrez, and had showed good ground and pound in that fight as well. In his last fight against Bochniak, I thought he got robbed. It was a much slower fight, but he looked like he was really developing his technical striking. He was mixing up his strikes and kicks well in that fight. Seemed to have a good control of distance. So yeah, I like Barzola, and he seems like a good athlete. So I'm taking him here to win a decision over Avila. Lightweight, Marco Polo Reyes versus Jason Novelli. I'll go with Polo Reyes. I haven't watched any tape on Novelli before the UFC. In his debut fight, got ran over in the first round by David Taymor, who admittedly is a very different fighter than Reyes. You know, he's a high-level, skilled kickboxer, and Reyes is a brawler. But just going off of that performance, I still have to go with Reyes. Taymor put pressure on Novelli, and Reyes will definitely do that. He does leave himself open to being hit a lot. We saw that in both of his two previous fights against Duncan Kim in his last fight, and before that against Cesar Arzamendia. Won both of those fights by knockout, and even on TUF Latin America 2 in the house was knocked out by, I think it was Horacio Gutierrez, knocked him out. But yeah, because Novelli was ran over by Taymor, wilted under the pressure, I think Reyes can do that here, and he does fight very aggressively, really looks for the knockout, and not a completely reckless brawler. Still seems to have some craft to his striking, uses some angles. So, yeah, I'll go with Reyes. But with the caveat that I feel like I don't have a good sense of Novelli's overall game or capabilities, but without doing more research, I will take Reyes by TKO. At middleweight, Sam Alvey versus Alex Nicholson. I'm going to go with Alvey. Has a lot more UFC experience at this point. But I feel like a guy like Alvey, who is a slow starter and, gets hit and is down on points before he's able to land the knockout strike or get the finish. I feel a guy like who always relies on that method of victory is probably going to mess up at some point and get put out before he gets his opportunity to capitalize. And Alex Nicholson is an aggressive striker. Big power, was getting dominated by Devin Clark in his last fight. I think I think it was in the third round when he got the finish, but was getting taken down, got dropped in that fight, and just off of a scramble, sort of. Clark was getting back up to his feet, and Nicholson charged at him, hit him with a short shot that put him out. So he's got power, but it was dominated by Misha Serkinov in his fight before that. Got his jaw broken. I'm going to take Alvey. I can't trust a guy who doesn't seem to have skills outside of being a brawler, and even being a brawler, Alvey seems to be more composed, maybe to his detriment. Like I said, he waits around. In the Casey fight, Casey was landing on him. Cesar Ferreira was outstriking him from distance before he landed the knockout shot. But I'm still going to take Alvey. Won by submission recently against Spicely. I think he's, kind of rounding out his game a bit more. I don't think we're going to see him hitting takedowns and, fighting a well-rounded fight to win a decision. But I will take Alvey here. I just worry that, being the slow starter and, waiting around early in fights, he might get knocked out, and Nicholson seems to be more aggressive and has the power to do that. But I like Alvey. Has fought better competition and is on a streak right now. All right, at bantamweight, Henry Briones versus Douglas Silva de Andrade. I actually watched some tape for both of these guys. Silva de Andrade's last fight was against Cody Gibson in February of 2015. So hasn't fought for a year and a half. And in that fight, he won the decision, but definitely did not deserve to. He was getting tagged by Gibson's jab a lot. Dropped him once in the fight, caught him with a counter coming in. But other than that, it was just getting picked apart with that jab for the entirety of the fight. I still think he should have the advantage over Briones. He didn't land much in that Gibson fight, but Briones does not look like a technical fighter. Doesn't seem to have much of a striking game. Guido Cannetti was really pouring it on this guy before he landed that comeback Hail Mary knockout uppercut against him. And against Cody Garbrandt, did well to not get destroyed like all of other Garbrandt's opponents before and after that, but still didn't get anything done at all in that fight. And Silva Andrade was throwing. He looked well muscled. Did drop Gibson at one point, so I'm going to go with Andrade. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird fight. Two guys who haven't shown much in the UFC. Briones was also knocked out by an up kick against Marlon Vera on TUF Latin America in a fight that he was winning, but yeah, got knocked out by an up kick. So, not a very trustworthy guy. I'm going to take Andrade, but weird fight. At welterweight, Eric Montano versus Max Griffin. I also watched a bit of tape on Max Griffin before the UFC. Lost his debut to Covington, just got utterly dominated on the mat and pounded out. It might have been submitted, I don't remember, but it did, eat a lot of ground and pound. But in his fights that I just kind of skimmed through before the UFC, he still seemed to really struggle on the ground. He fought Randall Wallace, and he dropped him in the first round, I think, with a jab, and then by the second and third round, Wallace just had his back, was working the choke and just wearing and grinding on this guy. The second round, he spent all of it on his back. In the third round, the first part of it was on his back. So this guy just looks like he has no ground game. On the feet, a very athletic, aggressive striker. Definitely seems dangerous there. In the other fight, I can't remember which one it was. He knocked the guy out very quickly in the first round. So if he can keep it on the feet, I think he should be able to put away Montano. But Montano, for as unimpressive as he's looked in the UFC and as terrible as his brother is, I think he is going to be able to perform better than his brother in the UFC. I do think he's a little better than Dodger Montano. And for as unimpressive as he's looked, he's still a big guy who can drag you down and hold you down. We saw that in his last fight against Randy Brown, which wasn't even too long ago. I think maybe a month ago. So this is a quick turnaround for Montano. Also in the house on TUF Latin America against Vernon Ramos, I think he dropped him and then submitted him on the ground. And against Enrique Marin, won a decision there. I didn't think he won, but has not been impressive. Hasn't looked terrible either. But I don't know. Max Griffin just to me looks like a guy who cannot compete off of his back. And Montano was doing pretty well there for 2 rounds against Randy Brown. So I think he's going to be able to get Griffin down, hold him down. He's definitely not the wrestler Covington is, but he is big. And yeah, if Griffin can keep it on the feet, I think he gets a TKO. But I think Montano will weather an early storm and then grind him out for a decision. So I'm taking Montano. At bantamweight, Marco Beltran versus Guido Cannetti. This is actually a rematch from their first fight on TUF, where Beltran won a decision. From what I remember, I didn't rewatch the fight, but he just had back control a couple of times. And other than that, I think Cannetti outstruck him. I think hit some takedowns maybe, but I remember thinking that Beltran did win the fight, but it was a very uneventful fight where neither guy really had any significant fight altering offense. Since then, Beltran has been very weird. He's kind of stumbled his way to victory against a few very low-level guys like Ningguang Yu, Marlon Vera, another controversial decision that he probably should have lost. But his last fight against Reginaldo Vieira, I was very impressed that he was able to not only get the win, but he finished Vieira. And Vieira was the winner of TUF Brazil 4. Had a very competitive fight with Delano Lopez. I know a lot of people thought he lost that fight, but people respect Lopez and Vieira, having a win over him where he showed good boxing and competed on the ground well. I thought he was clearly going to be of a higher skill level than Beltran, but Beltran, after just kind of dancing around the cage for a bit, and throwing these kind of low percentage and orthodox strikes, there was a scramble and he landed an up kick, I think a few on Vieira that I think dropped him, and from there submitted him. So I was impressed with that, but Cannetti, even though he lost the first matchup, I think I'm going with him here. He just seems to have a more consistent approach to fighting than Beltran. It just seems like Cannetti, always looking for the takedown. On the feet, like against Briones, he was putting out a lot of volume. Was getting him in the clinch position and landing knees from there. Had a win over Hugo Viana, where he was able to out wrestle him. Not a pretty fight, a pretty pretty uneventful fight, but I just think that a more methodical approach is going to get him the win here over Beltran, who seems to really kind of be lost and just looking for moments of chaos to capitalize on. So I like Cannetti to grind him out here for a decision. At bantamweight, Eric Perez versus Felipe Arantes. This is a fun fight. I feel like it's really Perez's fight to lose, though. Arantes should not be able to compete with him on the feet. Perez is a good striker. He makes adjustments after really getting lit up by Rivera in the first round of their fight. Perez made adjustments, was able to hit takedowns, and even on the feet, gain control of the striking. And the ground game, which is really the only area where Arantes is dangerous. He is very dangerous. Can hit submissions off of his back, but Perez hasn't struggled on the ground. Did get submitted by Caraway, but Arantes doesn't have that kind of wrestling, and Perez, other than that, has not struggled on the ground, and he's used his wrestling and grappling to edge guys, dangerous strikers like Taylor Lapilus, and has even done well against some submission fighters like John Albert early in Perez's career, who was a really aggressive submission guy, and Perez ended up submitting him. So I think Perez, his wrestling, his ground control is going to be enough to stuff the submission attempts by Arantes, and on the feet, like I said, Arantes, I don't think should be able to compete at all there. Perez should have a big advantage. And Perez seems like a pretty intelligent fighter, Jackson Wink fighter. I don't think he's going to get caught in a sub, and Arantes really only gets subs off of his back. He is good at it, but that's not that's not really a reliable game plan against higher level competition. So I'm taking Perez here. I think he wins the decision. All right, at women's strawweight, Alexa Grasso versus Heather Jo Clark. I'm not going to make a pick here. I did not watch tape on Grasso. Heather Jo Clark, I haven't been impressed or really unimpressed with her. She just seems kind of average. Did have a nice win in her debut against Beck Rawlings, who's gone on to have a few okay wins in the UFC, but pretty easily out-wrestled her and controlled her on the ground in their fight. In their last fight against Kovalkiewicz, got outstruck, but wasn't really, didn't take any serious damage, wasn't close to getting finished or anything like that, and I didn't think she looked all that worse than Nama Yunus did against Kovalkiewicz. But yeah, I didn't watch tape on Grasso. I'm sorry, but won't be making a pick for that. right now at lightweight, Beneil Dariush versus Rashid Magomedov. Great matchup. A very compelling matchup because Rashid Magomedov has done really well, has been able to keep fights on the feet. It seems like a very good striker, a skilled striker, really picks his shots well. A good combination striker, really capitalizes on openings and has power. He's dangerous. He did in his debut fight though against Tony Martin. I always remember this. He got caught in an armbar early in that fight and was screaming in pain. You could just see it on his face, but was able to fight out of it. And other than that, he hasn't been put in those situations again in the UFC. Even fighting good grapplers like Gilbert Burns, they haven't been able to get the fight to the ground. And Dariush, I think he can do that. Dariush on the mat, he is a skilled control grappler and also a very good submission finisher. But I don't think his wrestling is good enough to get it to the ground. Against Michael Johnson, really struggled in that fight. At least, he won the third round, but first couple of rounds, could not get that fight to the ground, could not get close on a takedown attempt to save his life. Johnson outstruck him, made him very uncomfortable on the feet, and easily stuffed all of his takedown attempts. And I think Magomedov will do the same. And on the feet, Dariush has gotten better. We saw that against James Vick. Has big power, cracked him with big overhands, and Dariush seems to have a good Muay Thai striking game. Really capitalize and really pour it on guys when he has them hurt. But Magomedov will be the higher level striker, just technique wise, and I think he may even have more power than Dariush. Dariush just hasn't proved to be a good enough wrestler to get the higher level strikers and the guys with better takedown defense on the mat. So I'm going to take Magomedov here. I think he keeps it on the feet. At the very least, I think he outstrikes Dariush to win a decision and maybe gets a third round knockout. Magomedov's level of competition has been weak, though. Rodrigo Dam, who is that other Brazilian, Silverio, Gilbert Burns. Dariush is a lot better than those guys, definitely, but I still think Dariush, that Johnson fight, really sticks out to me. So I'm going to go with Magomedov. All right, featherweight, Ricardo Lamas versus Charles Oliveira. Great matchup. Kind of weird that they just threw it on this card. I guess only a month out from the fight, or less than that. I think 2.5 weeks. I don't know if the guys were training beforehand, but if that's the case, seems like neither guy is gonna have a full camp to prepare for this fight. But I like Lamas here. Lamas has really taken a more defensive approach in his last couple of fights, at least against Diego Sanchez. I feel like he was holding back when he really could have chased the finish and really opened up, trying to put Diego away. But when he couldn't, he backed off and reset. But he's a very good combination striker. He's tactical. He mixes in the leg kicks with his strikes. He's a good wrestler. And Oliveira, while he's done well to get guys like Jeremy Stevens on the ground and eventually submit guys like Nick Lentz. I don't think he has the fundamental boxing to hang with Lamas, and we've seen guys, just put out Oliveira like Holloway, going to the body, and Oliveira's not a very durable guy, but also Cub Swanson, putting it, laying a big overhand on him, and Oliveira having that delayed knockout reaction. I think Lamas has the power to put out Oliveira. And on the ground, I think Lamas, has the wrestling, has the control to not get submitted by Oliveira. Oliveira is very dangerous, though, and I could see Lamas getting lazy on a takedown attempt, leaving his neck out and getting guillotined, or even getting submitted from guard. If he's lazy there, and Oliveira gets him in a triangle, which he's very good at. But Oliveira, he's been held down by guys like Nick Lentz, even. Nick Lentz is a good fighter. I don't mean to say he's not, but even Andy Ogle was able to get this guy down and stay on top of him for a bit before getting submitted. So a control guy like Lamas, I don't see him getting submitted, but I don't think this fight's going to take place on the ground much, actually. I think Lamas is not going to mess with the wrestling. I think he's going to keep it on the feet. And, Oliveira's not a bad striker. Hung in there with Edgar and against Stevens. He was able to close the distance and use his striking to set up the takedowns. But I think Lamas is going to have a big advantage on the feet. And, Oliveira's just coming off of that loss to Perez as well. So, another case proving that he's not a very durable guy against better strikers. So I like Lamas. In that fight, Lamas just lost against Holloway. He was so tough, and he had lost the decision and couldn't keep up with the pace or the output of Holloway, but he stood his ground, and he had a moment in there where he mounted some offense and connected with some hard shots on Holloway. So I was really impressed with Lamas. I'm going to take him here. I'm going to say he finishes Oliveira by TKO, second or third round. At lightweight, Diego Sanchez versus Marcin Held. I'm going to go with Marcin Held. I just don't really trust Sanchez anymore. It's kind of a wonder to me how he was able to beat Jim Miller, especially on the ground, out wrestling him. But I don't see him out wrestling Marcin Held. I haven't watched any of Held's fights except the one against Brooks. I watched that live, I think that was a year ago when it happened. But even against Brooks, a far more athletic fighter and better wrestler than Sanchez at, even a year ago at that point in his career. Held gave him a lot of trouble, was attempting a lot of submissions and, got, I don't want to say close, but was threatening with them and, maybe got halfway to a finish on a couple of them. And a guy like Sanchez with all the wear and tear and, how debilitated he is at this point, his body, how shop worn he is. I just don't see him being able to grapple with a guy like Held. And on the feet, Sanchez just really doesn't have much of a striking game. And especially now that he's gotten older over the last few years, his athleticism is, leaving him. His striking game, I feel, has really kind of been exposed. The lack of technicality. To get put out by Lozon like that, never being finished on the feet in his career, and to just get the light shut out by Lozon, that is not good at all. So I just think there's a huge athletic differential here. And then on the ground, I don't see how Sanchez really stops all the leg lock attempts and the really snake-like grappling of Held. So I'm going to go with Held. I'm going to say he wins by submission. Sanchez is tough, but after that Lozon fight, that's really not a finish that should have happened. So I'll go with Held. The next up, the co-main event is going to be the lightweight finale for Tough Latin America 3. I will attach a clip to the end of this video after I do the prediction for the main event, once that matchup is announced. But I will say that I think Claudio Puelles is the guy. I think he's clearly of a higher skill level than all the other contestants on the show. Not a standout athlete, not not a star like that, like Yair Rodriguez was, but just definitely seems like he has a higher skill level than the guy. Seems like the best wrestler, the best ground fighter. I think that's the guy to win it. And then the main event, lightweight, Rafael dos Santos versus Tony Ferguson. I just think it's a really bad matchup for Ferguson. Ferguson kind of has the approach of throwing all of his offense at you, throwing the kitchen sink at the expense of losing rounds, getting hit a lot in hopes that he can outlast you, hurt you enough to get the finish at some point. And I just don't see that working at all against Dos Anjos. And he has some questions to answer, after going down to Alvarez the way he did, getting put out in the first round. But Ferguson is not a pocket striker. He has big power, but he's long and rangy. Really likes the distance, the space, using angles, but really leaves himself wide open. We saw that in the Barboza fight. Barboza was outpointing him. He was outstriking him, connecting with a lot more. But Ferguson was more durable and was just able to outlast Barboza, and just kept coming, and eventually was able to get him in the submission. But Dos Anjos, much more tight boxing, fast, tight combinations. Doesn't, leave himself exposed. I guess did a bit in the Alvarez fight, but, against Perez and Diaz, really tight boxing, uses it very well to close the distance. Guy like Ferguson, who's has a much more wide open boxing style. I think Dos Santos is going to close the distance, break through his guard, and be able to hit takedowns from there. And Ferguson, he's had some good submissions and back takes on the ground, but if he starts dropping down for his Mars choke, Dos Santos is not going to submit to that. Dos Santos is a high-level grappler, very good positional and control grappler, and Ferguson has been really wild at times on the ground, and put himself has gotten stuck on bottom, like against Danny Castillo, who's not even really a submission threat, because he was really reckless going for those Mars chokes. And even against Abel Trujillo, eventually got the submission, but there were some exchanges there where he could have easily had back control, but chose to go for the belly down armbar and lost position, stuff like that. I just think Dos Anjos is going to capitalize on and really be able to control him from top. And even Dos Santos doesn't get submissions often, but if Ferguson really gets too reckless, I think that Dos Santos could connect. But more than that, I think it will be Dos Anjos securing position, securing top control, and working that ground and pound that I think will really wear out Ferguson and open him up for a late round finish. So I like Dos Anjos to finish somewhere rounds 3 through 5. I think I'll say 4, but it's really on the feet where I think Dos Anjos is going to have the advantage, closing the distance, having the tighter, quicker boxing combinations. I think he can tag Ferguson, who's been tagged before. You know, Trujillo dropped him right out of the gate, and Katsunori Kakuno cracked him. And even his last fight against Lando Venata, who proved to be a really promising fighter, but before that, no one knew who this guy was, and he had an extremely competitive fight with Ferguson, almost put him out a couple times. So, I like Dos Anjos to get it done on the feet, and I think he, probably, if he doesn't knock him out on the feet late in the fight, I think he will have gotten him, taken him down, and pounded him out on the ground enough to really wear him out to get that finish, either ground and pound or TKO late in the fight. And also, I didn't mention that Dos Anjos is just a great wrestler. We saw that against Perez and Diaz, and Ferguson was taken down by Castillo, and I don't see him having the takedown defense to stop Dos Anjos. So I'm going with Dos Anjos. I'll say 4th round TKO. Those are my predictions. And then I'm going to upload this video as it is without the prediction for the finale fight. And then I'll do a quick short video for the finale fight once that matchup is announced. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Again, follow me on Twitter. My link is in the description. And I will do my UFC 205 prediction video next week. I want to watch some tape on that for the McGregor-Alvarez fight and Jędrzejczyk-Kowalkiewicz fights, because I think those are very compelling matchups, and it's really kind of hard to just go off of my head and my memory. I really need to do some research for those. But thank you guys. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.